afternoon, Fairydust crafters. My name is Gina and I come to you from my small and humble little craft room here in beautiful British Columbia. This spot right here is where I talk about everything crafty, mostly fiber crafts. I am first and foremost a knitter, and of that I am a sock knitter. However, in the last little bit, I've been really enjoying blankets, scrappy blankets. I guess I've been bit by the scrappy bug. Any projects that I talk about today, you will find in my Ravelry Project Page, and you'll find a link to that just down below in the descriptions. And I also link everything that I talk about, most everything. If I ever forget anything, just let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. But let's get right to it. I have one finished object for you and a couple whips, and then we're gonna talk about all the scrappy things. First, my whip list, because I mentioned that last week, and then also all the scrappy things, because that is my jam right now. So I hope you have a good beverage that you enjoy. I've got my coffee right here and maybe something to work on, and let's have a look at my first finished object of the week. I really shouldn't say my first, it is my only finished object of the week. I finished my socks, just as I said last episode. By the way, this is episode 20. I'm excited. It's like been a consistent, I've been doing more than 20 weeks because I didn't do a full podcast in December while I was doing Vlogmas, and then I missed a couple weeks here and there. But yeah, episode 20. Thank you guys for being here and for listening to all of my sock talk. This here, my gorgeous, and obviously I have two of them. This is Vanilla is the New Black, and the yarn I've used was my January Yarnable. Yarnable is a subscription box that you can get once a month, and I just subscribe to the one where I get one skein of fingering weight yarn, and this was January. So the really cool thing about this sock is the heel. It is, and I still have not figured out what type of heel it is, but you just increase. It's an increase heel, and then you do a heel turn to get back to your actual number of stitches. So I have one finished pair of socks for these. With my Yarnable, I am, so far I'm doing good. It's only February though. This year I really want to knit a pair of socks for myself with the Yarnable subscription sock yarn. So as soon as I get my monthly yarn, I cast on and I make myself a pair of socks, and I will not start my next month until I am done with my current month. And so far I have, as I said, been very successful with that. So I finished these just in the nick of time, because when did I finish them? So I finished them last week. I want to say it was like Wednesday or Thursday is when I finished them. I just after I recorded last week's podcast, I really sat down and finished that pair of socks as I said I would, because my February Yarnable had already been in the mail and it was delivered on, I think I picked it up from the mailbox on Friday or Saturday. Friday. Yes, I don't even know what day it is anymore. It's like the days are just kind of like blending into each other, and I've been quite busy. So I did receive my February Yarnable. So if you do subscribe to Yarnable and you haven't received your February just yet, this is the time where you want to look away. So cover your eyes. This is the yarn for February. And the colorway is called Love is Love. And I'm just making a pair of vanilla socks with that. So I have, during my lunch break today, I did my heel flap and heel turn, and I'm just about to start the gusset. So I think tonight I will finish the gusset for this. And just like I said last week, it is a much shorter leg than what I'm used to, and I actually, this is how I park all of my stitch markers. So I do use light bulb stitch markers to mark my rows or my rounds, and I'm gonna put a link below to the Crazy Sock Lady's tutorial on why she uses these light bulb stitch markers and what they do and how to use them. And I park mine just like on the side somewhere, usually just like on the cuff, and then I just grab one from there. But yeah, this is 20 rounds for the cuff, and then 10, 20, 40 for the leg. And that's it. So it's a little shorter than what I've been doing in the last little bit, which means I will also be done with these in like no time probably. So this is my sock number 1. That was the Yarnable box for February 2024. If you looked away, now we're fully back. No more Yarnable spoilers for you here. I also cast on another pair of socks, and these guys are my husband's Christmas socks. This is, at this point, it's almost like a thing. He doesn't get a pair of socks for Christmas because I'm usually not ready for it. But he gets yarn in his stocking. And then I make a pair of socks for him. I want to be a little better about that this year and make him socks a little more regularly, because he does wear them and he likes them. So, or rather, he likes them and he wears them a lot. So I cast on just a vanilla sock for him. I did 30 rounds of cuff, and then I think this is 45 for his leg. He doesn't like a very long leg. So I usually just make them kind of like a medium. You'll find all of the information in my Ravelry project about like how many stitches I cast on and all of that. And I'm using this yarn, Froehlich Blauband. This is a yarn I get from my mom in Switzerland. So she actually, like when I go visit, I always make sure that I like pick out a handful of these. It is hands down my number 1 favorite sock yarn. Always has been. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm biased because I have literally used this sock yarn for like what, 30 years almost now. But it is the sturdiest yarn I have ever used. That's it. Really like it. I like that it's not the softest of all of them, but once you wash it, it actually softens up quite a bit. And because it's not super soft, it doesn't pill, and it does not, like it just stays like this. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's a fantastic yarn. So my mom either sends it to me, I get like yarn for my birthday, and I get yarn, little yarn packages like before Christmas, and like every once in a while, and she requests socks with this kind of yarn. So my number 1. So he always, and he likes it too. He says these are like the most comfortable socks that he's had so far. So I just keep copying basically the same sock for him. So that was it for socks. I showed you guys when I had like a tiny little bit of a cuff, I believe. I've been working on Megan Nodecker's Quesnel cardigan. And it's, I worked on it for a little bit on Saturday. And it's actually coming together quite nicely. I don't know if you can, no, you should be able to see this. So I have a few repeats in now. It's quite a bit of work, I say, because I have like over 200 stitches on my needles. But the pattern repeats are only ever 4 rows. So what I've been doing is I do like a couple of repeats and then I do something else and then I come back to it. And I feel like that way it has been growing slowly but fairly like steadily. Which gets me to my next topic. So last week I talked about WIP management and trying to somehow work on not all of my projects that I have because it's just like crazy, and I've been getting really overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of WIPs that I have. It's just at this point I'm like, I don't even want to look at stats anymore. I don't want to look at numbers anymore. So in January when I made my list, I compiled like a WIP list. I went through everything. I have all of my WIPs in one space now, so they're all like right over here, but they're all together. So all I gotta do is just like grab one and work on it. But I like just seeing that list and seeing the numbers and all of that just got me so overwhelmed. So you know what I did? I deleted that list. So, and I did frog a couple projects, and because I deleted the list and I frogged projects and I finished one pair of socks and I cast on new projects, I have no idea how many WIPs I have right now, and I am perfectly fine with that. I'm very happy about not knowing that number. So what I did last week though, what I was talking about is I do want to just work on like a few of them. So I always have my socks, obviously. That's kind of like that's my breather project. If I just need to sit down and like keep my fingers engaged, or just I need a break from whatever, I sit down and I do like a few rounds of sock. And at the end of the day, I've been working on my scrappy blankets. So I made a list, and I actually, instead of, I keep like wobbling my camera, I apologize. Instead of, you know, having like all of these details like everywhere, I went ahead and I grabbed my planner has this like monthly overview. And I write down how many pairs of socks that I do in a month. So far it's 1. And I have a little list here. And all I did was, what is the project? So my first one here is the November cardigan. And what do I want to do? So I want to do 10 pattern repeats, which means it's 20 rounds on my sleeve for the November cardigan. So I do that. And then I tick it off. I just grab my highlighter and this is like perfect paper for that, and I just tick it off. So my next one would be, I did like my yarnable socks. I just do 20 rounds and I tick that off. And I have a list, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects that I'm actively working on. And if I sit down and I'm like, okay, I need to, like, I'm sitting down and I want to do some crafting, but I want to also get rid of all of my stuff, right? I just follow that list. So this morning when I had breakfast, I was like, I want to work on my yarnable socks for a little bit, and I want to finish my heel. So that's what I did while I had breakfast. But really what I am focusing on when I just sit here in the afternoons or like at the end of the day, I go through my list and I make sure that I do get, you know, 10 repeats, 20 rounds of my November cardigan in at least somewhat regularly. So I don't care how long it's gonna take me until I am done with these like 5 whips here. Realistically, I could probably be done with those yarnable socks for myself in a couple days. Like that could happen. And then I just take it off and I add a new project. But if I just sit down and I want to craft something, or I just like feel like, okay, now I want to knit, I want to sit down and knit, I follow my list here. Oops. I follow my list, and they're all manageable, bite-sized little projects or repeats. So I can just sit down and say, yes, I have the next thing I should be doing according to my list here is 20 rounds of my husband's socks. Easy. And then the next one would be 1 single repeat, so 4 rows of my Quesnel cardigan. So I find if I approach it like this, and it's only been a week, and obviously my week started on Saturday, and Sunday I don't do anything like this. I just do my scrappy blankets. I only have like 3 things done. And I actually did my 20 repeats for my husband's socks. So I can take that one off too. So the next thing I will be doing is a repeat in my Quesnel cardigan. And I think that way, if I have just like tiny little bite-sized portions of crafting, I should be able to actually get all of those old whips done much sooner, rather than having like giving myself larger goals that are not really manageable. If I said, okay, next thing I need to do is in 2 days, I have to have this heel done, it's never gonna happen. So that's how I'm gonna approach it. And I think I'm on a good track here. We'll see. I'm gonna try and do this for the rest of the month, and then we'll see where it goes, right? I may just chuck it all and say, I don't care about this anymore. But this is the plan. This is how it's going so far, and I feel very confident. Now, our main topic for today is all the scrappy things. No scrap left behind. I am on a mission not only to do net zero stash. This is Molly's tail. But I also want to minimize my scrap bulk, basically. I don't have a gigantic scrap pile, but I do have like a bunch of scraps. For example, like this bin here, that's just like rando scraps that are sitting around. And I would like to, with net zero stash, I would like to kind of like get into that scrap bin. So I thought I'm gonna share today how I am approaching this. So how am I eliminating or reducing my scrap stash? And I think it's actually, I like literally sat down and I made a little chart for myself, but I think it's pretty straightforward. So for the most part, and I think this is really important, I am somebody who prefers fingering weight yarn for their knitting. I make a lot of socks, and even like sweaters, that kind of stuff, I tend to favor fingering weight yarn. That's just my thing. So that means most of my scraps are fingering weight. I have a small little bin with DK weight yarn, and I will get to that whenever I get to that. I kind of like have an idea what to do with it, but that's for another day, maybe for another year. But because I only use fingering weight yarn, I find it makes it a little easier to eliminate my stash. How do I approach this? How do I even get a scrap? Let's just take this as an example. So I just finished my yarnable socks for January, and I end up with you know, a little bit of leftover yarn. Now the first thing I do is I put a square into my coziest memory blanket that uses, I think, like 3 grams of yarn, not a lot. So I'm still, after doing that, I still have this scrap here left over. I'm just gonna grab my scale. I have this tiny little scale. You can get these off Amazon. You can also grab a kitchen scale that you can find like anywhere. You can get those from the hardware store. I got mine for like $9 from the grocery store. You can also get them from Amazon. I find they're a little more expensive from Amazon, but any kitchen scale, anything works. So I weigh my little scrap of yarn and I have 25.8 grams, 25.9. Okay, so I don't think that's enough for a pair of socks. I know that it's not going to be enough just from experience. So what I do is I have a scrap bin with like actually this one back here, but I threw a bunch of other stuff in there, so it's not really true anymore. But this scrap bin used to be just like plain colors, nothing variegated, nothing like that, just a solid color. So I grab this variegated and I go in and I would find a color that kind of like goes with it, a solid that somewhat goes with it. Could be anything really. And these two together should technically get me a pair of socks. So what I'm gonna do is I will go to my winder and I'm actually gonna split this in half and then start making a sock. So this should be all used up, and then I've already used up some of this. So that's gonna be my plan going forward. Whenever I'm done with a pair of socks, I go and do my square for the coziest memory blanket, and then I'm gonna weigh the leftovers and see, is it enough for either a pair of socks if I combine it with something else, or is it maybe enough for a pair of fingerless mittens. Fingerless mittens for like a medium size use roughly, depending on like your gauge and everything and what you do, how you do it, 25 grams. So this could even get me a pair of fingerless gloves. There you go. And then if I still have like a tiny little bit left over, and I have tons of those, like most of the ones in here, I put those, so like tiny little bits, I mean 10 grams and under, like small little things, or like some of the scraps I have maybe a little more. But if it's 20 grams or more, then that's a mini, and that is like part of a sock. So those ones go into my scrap bin where I just grab for socks. But if I have just tiny little bits and pieces left over, I put them into a magic knot ball. And again, I'm going to put a little link below for a tutorial on how to make a magic knot ball. What I do with this is, and I only just started this like literally before I started filming here, I'm sitting on it. I started a new blanket, new scrappy blanket, and this is gonna be my magic knot ball blanket only. I will crochet it. And what I did is I chained 300 stitches, or 300, stitches, they're just chains, aren't they? So I chained 300, and I'm gonna do just like one little foundation row, I guess, of half double crochets. So that's what I've been working on. I'm like about 3/4 through here. And then after this, I'm gonna just grab my magic knot ball and I'm gonna start crocheting. And from what I'm thinking right now is, I did put a link in my project page. I think this is just gonna be a granny stripe blanket because it's easy. I don't have to think a lot, and it's compact enough to like hold it all together. So my random scraps are gonna go into this blanket. and then it's going to take me however long. This is 200 grams. So whenever I have like a little bit left over, I put it into a magic knot ball, and then when I have 200 grams, I put it aside and then I pull from this one. I always have random scraps, and what I started doing too, I have a second one going, it's like bumping around somewhere on my desk. I have a second ball already going where I just literally went through all of my bins and everything, and whenever I found a scrap where I was like, don't know what to do with it, I'm just gonna put it into the magic knot ball. I'm not gonna think too much about it anymore. Even if it is like 12 grams of like a solid color, I'm just gonna put it into the bowl because I have so much yarn to choose from at this point that I'm just gonna use it up. So that's the plan. Now I have started this scrappy habitation throw a long while ago. And every time I look at it, I kind of like the colors. I kind of like how it's coming together. But at the same time, I just don't love it. I'm not feeling it. So what I thought I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my needle. So what I think I was going to do, like I like it, but you know what? Pulling my needle out, and I've already marked it as frocked in my Ravelry projects. So all of these scraps are gonna go into my second magic knot ball, and that's that. Because I just like, it's been sitting for too long, and I don't really have a lot done, that I don't think I'm gonna work on that. I still do want to make a habitation throw, but I would like to make one that's a little more planned out. So I will go through all of my yarns, through my stash, and maybe find, like actually have a look at how much yarn I need. I think I need about six skeins, like 600 gram skeins ish, somewhere around that, or even more. So I think what I'm gonna do is I will actually make a curated habitation throw, something pretty. That is not like a random scrappy one. Or I will just park it for a little bit until I'm done with some of my other throws, because I have so many blankets going, I don't think I should have too many. So this one is just gonna go back into the bin, and then I will deal with that bin when I get to it. But yes, I keep all of my scraps in like this bin. Whoops. I'm trying to keep it somewhat contained, but it's already starting to overflow a little bit. So I know I have to deal with all of those, and it feels good, like going through all of my like random little bins, and then I would find a project bag somewhere that I haven't unpacked. I found like a couple of those. So all I do is I go in and I unpack it, and if there's like a tiny little bit of yarn in there, I just throw it into my magic knot ball. I think this is a great idea. Now, some of you may wonder, well, magic knot ball, does it not unravel? I honestly don't know. I have talked to people who told me that yes, they have had issues with magic knot ball projects. So like usually people put those in like a blanket. So they would say, yes, it has come undone, and then you have to go in and fix it. I haven't had an issue with it, but I've never made anything that's to be worn. So I don't think I would ever knot anything that goes into a pair of socks. Just because I don't really trust it. But I think for a blanket, and especially a crochet blanket that I keep for myself, I would never give any of those away. I'd rather weave in like a million ends that I know are gonna be secure than like giving anything away that was made with a magic knot ball. So I trust it. I just blindly trust it, and so far, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues. But I will let you know like 5 years from now, after I've like used this blanket that I've made out of, that I will be making out of magic knot balls, I will let you know. Once you wash them a few times, who knows? But for the most part, probably more gonna be something that just like sits here on my chair where I can use it. The reason why I'm crocheting this is because I haven't crocheted anything in a while, and I thought I do like the looks of it, and I thought, why not? I'm using a 3mm hook for this, and I have 3 reasons why I'm using a 3mm hook and not a 2.75 or a 2.5, because it is a fingering weight yarn. My reason number 1 is because I'm a tight crocheter. It's actually like a 3mm crochet hook works out to a really nice fabric with my tension. Reason number 2 is 3mm is the smallest regular hook that I have. I have like 1.25, that kind of stuff, but I do not have anything smaller than 3mm, so I do not want to go out and buy a smaller hook. And reason 3 is I want not a stiff blanket, but I want something that's a little more soft and squishy, and a 3mm will give me the perfect gauge, the perfect fabric that I enjoy. So 3 reasons why I use this hook. But yeah, I will hopefully, I'm really trying to be good about this and a little more strategic. I don't work well with planned out projects. So I cannot go and like plan my whole year of knitting, or even plan a month of knitting. I cannot do that. But I think having like little bite-sized projects will help me with my whole many multiple whip dilemma that I have. And I think it will make it a little less stressful for myself, just so I don't get too overwhelmed. But yeah, I'm gonna undo this now. I love frogging. It's like the weirdest thing. I love frogging projects, and I am not afraid to do so anymore. And then I am going to finish the foundation row here for my blanket and get started on the first couple rows or so. Yeah, but I think that's all I have to say for today. I'm gonna finish my coffee here while I do that too. And I hope I'll see you guys back here next week. In the meantime, happy crafting and see you soon. Bye.